Michelle should be able to see it as well. Okay. So looking at these 14 items, I'll go back around and everybody tell us what is the first most important issue that you think we should consider. Actually, let's do the first three things that each of you would like to consider. Keith, I'm going to start with you.
Come back to
Rachel?
me in a few
Rachel?
minutes. I gotta look through them.
Before we do that, can we actually speak to why?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Let's go through each thing and even if you didn't nominate it, let's talk about it. And let's start with recreational therapy.
Well, I can speak to that.
Please do.
It was on my list as therapeutic recreation, but recreational therapy in Flagstaff is lacking. And both at the private, privately and through the city as well. And, I think it's more lacking than it was 10 years ago. And I think that's something that we as a commission should address and maybe, with that carrot, really encourage more therapeutic recreation to be happening.
So now that we have lost Susan, I try not to cry when I talk about this. Truman Schoaf is the first student that will be graduating with a therapeutic recreation degree, recreational therapy degree. I think we need to extend an invite to him to either apply for the commission or be a part as a liaison. And then we can get some clarification from him on what things would be best to work on, how to work on them. Just get him to do a lot of those things. The one thing I would like to see in therapeutic recreation is this commission working together and looking for grants to do things like, just as an example, the three workout stations up at Buffalo Park. I would like to see more of those around all of the parks or expand out from Buffalo Park. And so I would like to extend an invitation to Truman to join this commission in some form or fashion so that he can work with us.
And should we identify ourselves, Stacy, as we speak?
You can. You don't have to. I think that would be more of a question for Michelle. If that would help her know who's speaking. But
True.
it's up to you.
That's true. So Michelle, would it be helpful to you if we identified ourselves as we spoke?
Yes, I actually think that would be beneficial.
Well, this is Russ. I agree completely. Rachel,
Okay.
I don't know, Stacy, like, can we just appoint a liaison? We can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's somebody who is interested, you could ask him if he'd like to serve in a liaison capacity similar to Joseph and Elida, to focus on therapeutic recreation.
Can we put that on the agenda for our next meeting?
You got it?
And in
And
the
then-
meantime, what I will do is Susan and I are meeting for lunch. Maybe I'll loop Truman into that and see if we can get him to come to lunch. And Susan and I will talk to him about it. Does that sound okay for everybody?
Yes,
this
and
is- This is
Sorry.
Rachel, sorry.
sorry, Rachel. This is Joseph. Actually, I know Truman from experience because I've worked with him I've actually worked with him for Special Olympics and for Camp Civitan, and it would be an honor for him to be with us. I would actually agree on that. Go ahead, Rachel, back to you.
Okay.
This is Lorena from Mountain Lion. I just wanted to add that I think this, commission having inclusivity in its title is really important to circle back to therapeutic recreation and acknowledge the fact that the overall mental health of our community is very important, and we want to make sure that everyone is included in recreation and has a space to feel that they can be creative and also express themselves physically. And I think overall, it's a very, very important item to pay attention to with or without Susan. I think that the energy is there and that we should continue pushing that along as a major topic in this group.
And this is Rachel. Sarah was also working with Susan at the very beginning of this. And so we will loop her into this and see exactly what she wants to do as well. So that we just kind of bring her into it and maybe she can be the commission liaison to Truman if Truman accepts the position. Russ?
And in no small part, I think due to discussions with amongst this commission, the Aquaplex is now open on Sundays. And,
It
that
is.
is
Yes, it is.
accessibility to therapeutic recreation. Because the Aquaplex is one of the few pools in town that actually has the lift
Yeah.
to put you in and out of the pool. So, I mean, that's really important to people who have a disability and are not able to access a pool otherwise. And it's open on Sundays now, which is really
It
good
is.
news.
It's open from noon to 4 or noon to 6, I think.
No,
Oh, 9 to 1, 4 hours. So
And the Aquaplex accepts Renew Active
oh, it
for
does.
membership, which is really good too, as far as accessibility, right? So,
Now, do you know if that is accepted citywide at city facilities or is it
nope,
just the
it's not.
Aquaplex?
It's not at Joe Montoya. It's not at Hal Jensen. It's not at the ice rink. And maybe that's something that we could work on as well.
So
But,
maybe we need to add pros into the discussion of recreational therapy too.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like with regards to that, that would be Tyrone Johnson. Um, but steps, baby steps, and the Aquaplex does accept Renew Active, and the Aquaplex is open on Sundays. Good news.
Good news, great news. Okay, any other discussion about therapeutic recreation? Michelle, I see your hand up.
Yes. So this is Michelle. Um, I wanted to also bring up something that I've seen some community members calling for, and I think it would fall in line with therapeutic recreation, which is a splash pad.
Can I provide an update on that? So as part of the Downtown Connection Center's civic space that was discussed earlier, part of that concept plan actually does include a splash pad. Our pros team is very, very excited about that possibility. Again, we don't have a date on that. There's a lot of, other factors going into it, but they're pushing really hard to bring one to our community. So again, not that that solves, this, we can certainly have more conversations about it, but I just wanted to bring it forward that it's in the plans.
Sweet. Any other discussion about recreational therapy? I think that some of our items can maybe be combined under this, but we'll get to that. Okay, is that it? Anybody else? All right, moving on to number 2, the NACOPT job fair. Michelle, I know that you guys do that once a year now.
We actually haven't done that in a couple of years, but I'm going to bring that up again at our planning meeting. And I think that is a good opportunity for even for people of this group that might want to check it out and see, kind of how we interact with them and stuff like that. So I think that would be an important topic to focus on.
And I know that 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago, when you guys did it at CCC, I was a guest speaker. And I was an advocate for learning how to self-advocate. Is that something that you think this commission could help with?
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else on the NACOP team want to say anything?
This is Russ. And the past, at least last year, or the last 2 years, Coconino High School has actually hosted a team job fair, which with the support of the community practice transition team. Um, So that, I mean, and yes, I think the CIL could be very helpful with regards to that as well. But through the coordination of the school district.
Perfect. And then I just have, the year that I was a guest speaker. Oh, it was my first year on the commission, actually. It was the first month on the commission. Um, I think it would be, Stacy, how hard would it be to get a small banner that we could put on a table in front of a table that says Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living with a city logo? And then we could have the brochure that you have about boards and commissions. And then possibly we could work on a specific one that talks about CL and what we do in our mission and how to apply. Is that possible?
Anything's possible. Let me look into it. Let me see what that cost might look like, and we'll see
Okay.
if we can fit that in somewhere.
Okay,
You bet.
perfect. And is that something, Michelle, do you think that that's something that possibly NACOP would help with the cost?
Currently, we don't have um, we don't have any like funding that comes in or anything like that. It's something that I do bring up for discussion once a year. So we bring it up again at our planning meeting, and then we can readdress that.
Okay, perfect.
This
Any-
is Lorena. I have a one-off regarding job fairs. So forgive me if I'm digging my own grave here, but someone who's lived here in this community for quite some time, I've worked for the county and the city. And I was able to have my own part-time job, my own business, while waiting for the onboarding process. And so I just want to note that in respect to people that have different challenges, that process of onboarding could be even more troublesome. And so I just want to make note if there was a way to look into the onboarding timeline for both the city and the county that has a lot of jobs available, that could certainly help some of these issues that we're trying to tackle as a community. Again, I hope I didn't dig my own grave there.
That is a perfect suggestion. And I think that follows up with Russ's item about something about the city. Go ahead.
Do you want me to speak to that now?
Yeah,
And before I do, with regards to a banner, I do know who will make a banner for
Oh.
free, and that's Knackard Pepsi. It will say Pepsi on it. But, and at least, I mean, they've made probably a dozen, banners for me over the years. I think they're still doing that.
okay.
As I see, on the side of the road, advertisements for things and it'll say, Pepsi on the side. I think Pepsi's just doing it. So,
Awesome.
with regards to city, staff self-disclosure of disability, I have some notes here about that. And this is Michelle Russ. I think actually it might relate to the transition plan too, but, and I think most of us know this, but the city is a federal contractor. As a federal contractor, the city is required to annually ask employees if they have a disability. That is by federal law. They are required to. Department of Labor, I guess. The actual form that is used is CC 305. And on the form itself, it says, the city as a federal contractor needs to be working towards a disclosure of 7% of folks who will disclose that they have a disability. My research shows me that about half of the municipalities who are federal contractors across the country meet that 7% goal. I don't want to use the word quota, but that goal. City of Flagstaff reports that it's 3%. So we are not even halfway to meeting that goal. And literally, Keith and I have talked about this, but literally, I mean, the same form is used by municipalities and federal contractors across the country. And half meet that 7% goal of people disclosing they have a disability amongst their staff. And we're at 3%. I think that's a problem. I think that's a real serious problem.
So do you think that the city needs to look at a different way that they can disseminate that form and encourage? Because I know that a lot of people that have hidden disabilities will not disclose. And I think that there's maybe a different way that we can ask people that it's not punitive. We need to first of all let employees know it's not punitive. And it's important because I know that the city can get funding for that 7%.
Yeah, and I think that's right. But I also know that municipalities across the country use that same form. And about half of municipalities reach that 7%. I mean, I don't know, is it different for people on the city staff here to disclose that they have a disability than people who serve on the city staff, from Prescott or Cottonwood or Buffalo, New York? I mean, I don't know why it might be different, but it is different because we are at 3% disclosed they have a disability, and half of the municipalities across the country reach 7% who will disclose it. Is it a bad culture among our city staff that it's bad to have a disability? Is it a discriminatory practice in hiring? Is it inaccessible websites where people can actually see what jobs are posted? I'm not sure, but I think it's a problem.
So what do you see this commission doing to push that forward?
I think, and the second part of it is that according to the federal law, if a contractor does not meet that goal, the contractor is required to investigate and address potential impediments in their employment and hiring practices that may contribute to the underemployment of individuals with disabilities. That is in federal law. I don't know that the city of Flagstaff is actually investigating to address those potential impediments. I, I don't think it is, because I think if it was, we would know that. So I think we as a commission can encourage the city to investigate why that really low number of people who identify as having a disability on a survey.
So how do you feel about once Aaron Kaminsky is settled in his
Mhm.
job, he understands a little bit more about the ADA stuff? Of course, Stacy or this commission is going to have to be available to him to answer those types of things. But how do you feel about bringing Aaron back to one of the commission meetings and specifically talking about just that form
And
and how we can help?
I think and he is going to be the ADA coordinator, so I think of course he should be involved. But I also think we need to have a lot of serious discussions with whoever is the new HR director. Because I really think this is a kind of an HR issue, perhaps.
So
But
we had talked about bringing both of them in
Mhm.
possibly October, you said? In possibly October. So why don't we set aside a large portion of the commission meeting to talk about exactly this
Mhm.
and what path they see forward, and then what path this commission can move forward and help them get to that goal? Is it,
Absolutely,
okay,
absolutely. And what can we do to assist them? And then, and of course, because you see one of my other ones is inaccessible city websites. So it kind of does roll into, it's kind of an intersection of issues, but, and really the reason I bring this to the attention of the commission, I have former students who have applied and wanted to work for the city of Flagstaff, and they have disabilities, and they just are not getting hired.
okay, okay. I don't know. I kind of think that's an important one, but let's keep talking. Okay. Let's move on to barrier-free Flagstaff. We have put the letter forward. Now it's in council's hands to read that and let us know the direction forward. But in the meantime, Russ and Keith, what further do you see this commission? And I'll tell you what I think. I think that as you guys do your reports, that those reports should be brought back to the commission. And then we can, as the commission, we can make recommendations, understanding that the city does not make the changes unless number one, they can afford to. And correct me if I'm wrong, but number two, if there's construction plans. Is that right?
Correct.
So with that understanding, I think that we should, or BFF should bring the reports, let commission talk about it, form a letter and send it to commission, to council. What do you think about that, Keith and Russ? Oh, that's right.
I think that's a good idea. It may be a little bit redundant because we're already sharing the reports with the staff of wherever we do an expedition. But if the commission reviews that, forwards it with recommendations as well, I think that really helps to give a louder voice to what we're trying to achieve. So I'm on board with that idea.
So what do you guys feel about, because there is going to be a lot of redundancy, about instead of forwarding that to staff as BFF, you forward it to the commission and then let the commission forward it to council and follow up with council rather than sending it to city employees, because city employees are eventually, I believe, going to end up in front of council anyway, talking about this stuff. And so it kind of narrows the path for this commission to make those recommendations.
This is Keith. I believe it's very important for city staff to, because they're participating in it, to get the results of what they participated in directly. Without having to wait months or time or whatever to go through, our, our commission and stuff like that.
So Stacy and Mayor Daggett, I am curious to hear your feedback about what you think would be best.
Thanks. This is Stacy. I'll jump in before maybe Mayor. What I was going to suggest is perhaps, we provide, Barrier Free Flagstaff provides that information to city staff on the spot, really summarizing, the um, expedition and the findings. And then that information can be brought back to the commission, who can review those and maybe formulate a recommendation back to the mayor and council that kind of summarizes what the Barrier Free Flagstaff has found, the recommendations that they have, and then elevating that up through the commission to the council and perhaps also city leadership. Just
So
to
still
offer.
doing both.
Still doing both, but almost in partnership. So city staff can immediately have information. They can start to address things if they're able to. But we can then, as the commission, elevate that up so council has an idea of what's been done and what recommendations are being made. Because as they go into their own processes and they work with city staff, there may be recommendations that they then try to push forward with different things.
So I think listening to you say all of that, you guys are the stick and the transition plan will be the carrot. I think it might be important to include in that report pieces of the carrot. Like you guys are going to say, Joe Montoya, the parking lot needs to be bigger, it needs to have more handicap spots, whatever you guys are saying. And then as the part of the transition plan, then we could give them an idea of their steps forward. Of course, they're going to make the decisions, but if there's a piece of the transition plan, universal design or any of that we can include in that report, I think that would be, then we're presenting the problem and the solution. And so what do you guys think about working with the commission or whoever is on a transition plan committee within the city, within whoever decides to do that, about putting that into the report as well?
Two things, Rachel, and I think that's really good guidance. Um, But BFF is a standalone citizens committee. We can't make a decision for BFF right here.
Okay,
BFF basically operates by consensus. And in no small part under the leadership, really. I mean, I guess the expertise of Lauren Copeland and Sean Kugler and Chris Lanterman, who really are the accessibility expedition experts who will assemble that report. Now, I have to tell you, Rachel, over and over again, and these folks will tell you at meetings, Lauren tells me to remember the carrot. I mean, she just over it, right? I mean, it's true, right? So, I'm sure in the report includes, and I've seen reports from expeditions at NAU. There's always positive stuff in there about what is working and
okay.
where is universal design evidenced. But yeah, I think that's excellent guidance. So yeah.
Okay. Mayor, what do you think about all of this?
I think that Stacy is really smart and you should always listen to her.
No pressure at all.
You know,
So
she's
really what I'm
award-winning.
hearing is that when you have termed out Mayor Daggett, we should be looking at Mayor Salzberg.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll work on that together, Mayor Daggett.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion about BFF?
I have a question about where the data is compiled. Obviously, like you said, this is a private group functioning, doing what they've been doing for quite some time, but I was able to join the Joy Montoya, can't say that word, session, and I took quite a few notes, and it was kind of a one-off email, and I was wondering how best would this group recommend that we participate in that data. And I know that some of my findings, I was walking with Elida during that time. So I had someone who'd been a part of these groups and kind of, I took my attention to what Elida also noted. And so I'm just curious to know if this group knows where that data ends up and how that plays into what information the city staff receives.
This is Russ. The data does end up in that report, probably not all of it. And Lorena, you are extremely detail oriented as a person. And I congratulate you on that. And I thank you for that because what you reported back was a lot. That's probably not all going to be in the report. Do you see what I mean? Because as Rachel said, the report can't be just filled with this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is, it's not going to be. But your details will be,
I guess my comment would be more towards redundancy, so if the information is already there, and we're streamlining that information, because I'm sure many of the things I noted were already noted, but as a group, we might not have had a group discussion about it. So just curious when they make their formal recommendations, um, how that data is culminated so that someone didn't miss it and then it has to be reestablished again and sort of, you know, um, slows down the process of making those necessary universal design changes or emphasizing those needs.
yeah, and there is redundancy. I don't necessarily think redundancy is bad. As a longtime school teacher, sometimes redundancy is necessary for people to learn and to really maybe feel what they are learning. And hence, I mean, you'll see in the letter that I drafted, it does talk about, the commission itself reserves the right to do accessibility audits in the future. I mean, and in years ago, probably for 5 years that I was on the commission, we did accessibility audits, and then it stopped. I think right at like COVID or maybe right before. I mean, I don't know, but um, I mean, I see no issue if the CIL does an audit at the same site that an expedition happened at. It is redundant, but it's also kind of looking at things in a different way. Um, I'm trying to speak to that kind of carefully, but does that make sense?
So can I say something about that? Lorena, I think audits are like 82 pages. And I think that that's where all of your information would fit into. Um, and I'm not saying don't give it to BFF. I'm just saying that if this commission decided to take up audits, that would be, I think, more appropriate where that stuff goes, because it would surely fit into one of those 82 pages. Um, but I think as a commission, we have decided that auditing is not what we do, that it also is very redundant. If BFF is working, then their expeditions are, it would be redundant to do then an 82-page audit. And so instead, what we will do is carrot stick. So, and like you said, I don't think redundancy in information is bad. I know when I was in nursing school, I had to read things 4 or 5 times. So I don't think redundancy is bad, but I think that all of the information would be more appropriate with an audit if we ever decided to do that. I just don't think we're going to do it though. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I really appreciate how you summarized all the information from the accessibility expedition. And I think in general, when it comes to sharing information and where the data is actually like synthesized, um, share all those details. And then it may or may not be in the final report that Sean and Lauren work up, but having it available to all of us, I think is still beneficial. And thank you.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
Lorraine, I assure you, a lot of it will be in the report, along with, we love, the accessible playground equipment, right? But a lot of your information will be in the report, and in no small part, because when we met with pros previous to the expedition, we were told that everything's ADA compliant and we're all good on this. And, we really aren't. And that's just because the staff doesn't know. And that's why we do accessibility expeditions and talk about universal design and kind of help staff understand kind of some of the ADA stuff.
Yeah, working in a world of a lot of data, I've just found that, data is gold mines compared to feelings sometimes. And I just was curious to know what the processes was for that particular group. So thank you for sharing.
Um, just really quick, I'm sorry, this is not on that topic. Michelle's having a hard time hearing. So again, if you can speak maybe a little more closely to your mic, I think that might help her a bit. Thank you.
All right, moving on, let's talk about the city ADA transition plan. Um, I think that Susan and and Sam are gonna have to work with Stacy about this. Initially, we had wanted to do transition teaching in July. That's not gonna work. And so I think now we're kind of putting it out until after we've talked to Aaron Kaminsky. We just need to give him time to settle into his job, understand a little bit more about ADA, come into our commission, kind of knowing what the expectations are, and we can get into the nitty gritty with him. So I think that we're waiting for Aaron to come on board, learn a little bit about what he needs to do. And then in October, when we bring him in, then we can talk about possibly doing the transition teaching in either winter or early spring. So I think that that's where we're at. How do you guys feel about that?
I agree with it 100%.
I'm happy to take whatever we can get. This is Keith.
I think our work and our work helping the city to establish an ADA transition plan is very important work. I'm frankly kind of surprised it has not happened already. And, you know, and I researched ADA transition plans and what steps need to be done in order to establish one. Um, and one of the things it talks about is for a municipality, it needs to involve city staff, but it also needs to involve city leadership, which I think means our elected leadership needs to be involved. Um, it's a big deal. And, we elect our mayor and our city council members to represent the city population. 20% of our city's population, and maybe 25% of our city's population are folks with disabilities. So we really need our mayor and our city council to represent all 100%. And I think the establishment of an ADA transition plan is part of that representation. Um, looking at it, I mean, we're there, step one, we've started implementation. I think we kind of have, where at least we're talking about starting implementation. Stacy told us that an ADA coordinator has been appointed. That's like one of the steps. So we kind of are on that path. Um, so I think
Stacy?
it's very important that the commission stays very involved
Yeah.
with this process.
Yeah. Stacy, how hard is it to get council together outside of city council meetings and the budget retreats and that sort of thing?
Quite difficult.
Okay.
There's 7 of them. They're very busy. They meet every week. It's not to say it can't happen, but it will take a lot of coordination.
Because we know for sure that it will be at least a 2-hour meeting. When Susan and I do it, it will be at least 2 hours.
We will need to do some planning
Okay.
and and y- there's a lot that needs to go into that.
Okay.
Discussions with council, are they, interested in participating? Those sorts of things, and try to get them scheduled. I can't place a commitment for them.
Yeah.
But it takes a while to put together a meeting with all of them, because it would have to be a formal
Okay.
meeting.
So as welcomed here, I think that Susan and Sam and I will work with you and Georgiana. And we'll do pre-steps to actually doing the training, that sort of thing. Welcomed here will work with you on that, I think.
Yeah, I think putting together a timeline, some goals, some processes will help. Um, yeah, it just may take some time.
Okay. So as welcomed here, I think that we will do the pre-work. And then when we're ready, we will bring BFF into it. And then I know that we would like to have as many city staff as wish to participate. And then we're also extending it to the commission. And we'll see how many people. We may go even further than that. I would like to see somebody from the police department looped into what BFF and the transition planning team is going to do. And so I think that we will do some of the pre-work and then come back to you as a commission and let you guys know.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Are there any fees involved with participating in this training? Because that will be another component if
No.
we're looking, okay,
No, Susan and I talked about that and I don't think there will be.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is Russ, and I think that's an excellent plan, Rachel. With a couple things that I read out of here. One, there should be equal representation on whoever is planning and implementing the plan, equal representation with regards to percentages of folks in the city who have disabilities. So
Explain that a little more.
if you got 25% of the city has disabilities and 25% of the people involved in the implementation of the plan should be people who have a diagnosed disability.
So what do you think about during this meeting? We talk a little bit about that survey, and then at the end, we can offer that survey for people to disclose if they want to. What do you think about kind of combining those two?
I mean, I'm not sure if that's how survey is supposed to be done. I mean, I guess Stacy could tell me that, or um, I, I know when we met with the city manager, when Keith and I and you did, Rachel, he wasn't really very sure about the survey at all and how that should be done. He knew that a survey is required every year as a federal contractor. I guess that'd be HR, right, Stacy?
Yeah, this would be a very heavy HR risk management component. And as I've shared, we have had a lot of challenges with our human resources department over the last about 6 years. Um, Not that that's an excuse, but that kind of leads to some of the challenges that we've had with the consistency and kind of, making sure those things are done. So we're very, very hopeful that now as we've moving forward with a new risk manager, a new HR director, that some of these things will start to be elevated more like they were, a number of years ago. With this new team coming on board. And so I think that that's where it will be helpful to start having conversations with our HR risk management team to start to bring awareness and to start to maybe help bring in those recommendations from this commission on how they can start to implement those things. Again, I know that these things happened, but it has been quite a while, and I fully recognize that that is due to the significant issues in HR.
Do you
And-
think it might be easier, not only on HR, but people, employees, to disclose if we were to help HR, if this commission and anybody that wanted to was willing to help HR do that?
I think it's always an offer that can be made, but that is definitely a conversation with
Okay.
the HR team.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Russ, did I hear you?
Just one other point, and I've talked about this with other folks on BFF too. Um, Part of what's difficult in being an advocacy group, as we are as a commission, is that we are advisory. We advise the city council and the mayor.
Right.
The city council and the mayor changes. I mean, at NEU, you know, the leadership pretty much stays in place, but our city council and our mayor is constantly changing. So it can be kind of more difficult. I will say right now, our mayor is an ally of this disability community. She is. But our mayors have not always been allies of the, I mean, it's just the way that is. Um, our mayor, as our liaison, attends our meetings. I have to tell you, as a commissioner, that has not always been true for any liaison to attend our meetings. So, you know, in a way, I kind of think we should strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
We have a mayor who listens to us. We have city council members who attend events that are related to folks with disabilities. I think this is a good time to bring about some positive change.
100%. Agreed. See, Mayor, we're dragging you into it even though you may not want to be. And we certainly appreciate you.
And I do listen, and I am listening.
And we get you for what, another 6 years?
Yeah, I don't know. The fates will decide.
I heard that all term limits within politics are going away, so you're good.
Well, we don't have term limits in Flagstaff.
Oh,
Just the voters. Voters are our term limits.
okay. I didn't know that. Good to know. I thought it was 2 terms of 6 years, so good to know. All right, anything else about city transition and or BFF? I kind of think those go a little bit hand in hand. So, all right, let's move on to Regional Plan 2045. Does everybody, first of all, does everybody know what Regional Plan 2045 is? Elida, do you? Okay. Michelle, do you know what Regional Plan 2045 is? I'm a little familiar, Michelle says. Okay, so let's talk about it. And then Michelle, if you've got any other questions, you can email Russ, or who else? Keith. Oh, that's right. Keith has been very active with this. Keith has read through the 2045, I bet you about 50 times. So go ahead.
Well, this Keith, and I have not been through every page of that thing. I'm sure Russ has, because he's got the time and I have a regular job I work at. But I've looked at it. Russ had some great additions to it. Hopefully they will be looked at and worked on. But I haven't heard anything lately because I missed a couple of the more recent meetings as to where they are at, where they're standing at this point.
Do you know if they ever adopted what we had recommended about changing verbiage?
Yeah, and this is Russ, and Regional Plan 2045. It's truly our community's long-range plans for housing and transportation and the environment and inclusion. And I mean, it's really, I mean, it's a big 250-page document, which is really our plan, our city's plan, and our counties as well, our community's plan for really the next 20 years. Kind of a big deal. And you might recall that none of us were appointed to serve on that planning committee. And we sent a letter as a commission to the city council and to the county supervisors and to Sarah Dector, who I think Sarah's the long-range planner for the city of Flagstaff.
Isn't
I
she
don't-
PIO?
I don't remember the name of the long-range planner for Coconino County. Melissa's?
Melissa Shaw.
Thank you. I've met with these folks a few times, but our letter suggested that we should have been involved in that actual planning, and one of us or some kind of representative should have been put on that committee, on that planning committee. But then also in our letter, and I did read the entire document, and I think accessibility was mentioned 4 or 5 times in 200 pages on issues like transportation and housing. I mean, it's like, shoot. So in our letter, we made recommendations to include accessibility and inclusion, I think maybe like 55 or 60 times.
Who is we?
The commission, we sent a letter to the council and to the county supervisors and to Melissa and to Sarah.
Memory issues.
We did, Rachel. Yes,
Okay.
we-
I'm sure.
I really encouraged us to, and we did. you know.
I just know you and Keith and I were like having some really serious discussions and I've read through it. And so as a commission, what do you see us doing
I
again?
think continuing to be involved.
Okay.
And I think Keith and I have, I've been to a few open houses after that letter, and including an all-day training session or open house, and the mayor was there. And I have to tell you, at the end of all that discussion, and a lot of that discussion was about including accessibility. And what is the term they use more? A place, right? Mayor, what do they call it now? Like finding your place or identifying your place?
Placemaking?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. But I think a number of times I pointed out that, the 25% of the people in our community with disabilities also need to be able to know that this is their place. And when they encounter a place that's not accessible for them, that is telling them this is not their place. I mean, right? It is. And I think those people, the leaders who are running that little retreat, I think they listened, because at the end of the retreat, when they went over the things that they wanted to see change with regards to the plant, accessibility was mentioned twice. So I was very pleased to see that. I don't think this draft of the regional plan is completed yet. I sent an email out to Sarah, I think a week or 2 ago, and she said it's not completed, it's not ready for release yet. But she would let me know when it was ready for
Can you
release,
let me know when that
and
comes?
I will.
Okay.
And I think she said like probably mid-July, I think is what she reported back to me. And Stacy, that's what I think she said. But again, I have found Sarah to listen. And Keith, I think you too, right?
Well, we had a Zoom, Keith and you and I had a
Mhm.
Zoom with her
Yep.
and she seemed really open
Mhm.
to everything that we said. I just think it's something that we need to, as a commission and as advocates, that we need to keep 2045, like this is the plan for Flagstaff. So this is our time to speak. This is our time to absolutely advocate for the people we represent. And so for me, this is a pretty high priority.
I agree.
think.
And to the point, I think I would encourage the commission to invite Sarah back to another meeting to talk to us about what the regional plan looks like.
So
Now.
what about if we did it after that, the new revisions come out? You, Keith and I
Mhm.
talk again,
Mhm.
come up with things that we would like to talk to Sarah about during a commission meeting. And then we invite her in early fall
Mhm.
to come back. And we can tell her the things that we've seen. And any of you are invited, of course. But Keith and Russ and I kind of took this on, and I would still like to be involved.
I agree.
Um,
And Rachel, we have to understand that Sarah's not writing the plan.
Right,
I mean,
Yeah.
and even the city is not writing the plan.
yeah.
I mean, it's the community. because it involves a county as well.
Right.
And really some of the issues that the county has and some of their um, ideas for the plan are very different than for the city. I mean, obviously, living way out in the, way out in the boonies somewhere, the needs are different than when you live in the city. So some of the things in the plan are very different. But it's also really, I think it's very important for us to be involved.
Yeah.
Literally at the one open house that I went to, they spread out how they want to, the plan is for how the city to grow. The maps are all in color and just color. And I said, if I'm red, green colorblind, I don't see those. I don't see the distinctions here. It was not an accessible map.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for people who have colorblindness. And you could put like little markings in there or something that would show the delineations. But yeah, I mean, it's important for us to be involved because we do understand disabilities, So yeah, absolutely. I think we should stay involved. I think we should meet with Sarah. I think Sarah should come back to a meeting. Absolutely.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Are we still ranking these in priority as in there's only room for some of these items
No.
going forward?
I think that we will get to all of them, but we're going to rank what we consider to be the most, like the top 3 or 4 or 5 that are most important. And we will work on those, get those kind of established, I think, as a commission. If they need to be repeated and as discussion items every month, then Stacy can put them as continuing. And then we will put in like the next 9 as discussion items.
So the goal would be to address all of these within the year scope.
Hopefully. It's a lofty goal, but I think this commission, as we are seated now with all of our liaisons, I believe we can get that done. We will eventually have 2 new commissioners. Susan's seat is now vacant and Sarah is up next March, correct? And then Russ, yours is up next.
Is Sarah's up?
Sarah was like on a half term or something.
I thought Sarah was up last March, wasn't she?
I think she agreed to a half term. But in any regards, the commission as it sits now, between now and March, we can get, I think, a lot of our goals done. Because this commission, I think, is really motivated. And part of that is what we're doing outside of the commission as our outside work. So
I know from correspondence, being the associate planner and working closely with Estella that this particular county comprehensive 2045 plan, it took probably 13 different attempts to get transit mentioned. And that was completely due to Estella and her navigation and being adamant. So I thank her for that. But I will add that right now, as a larger political body outside of our mayor's support, that anything that falls under DEI might get pushed aside. And that was the catalyst for my question. Not that it isn't of great importance and that we can't continue to be the squeaky wheel. I just, based on some of the correspondence, which I can share offline with this group, I know that there are people on the parameters, Babbitt Ranch, outside of our purview that vehemently oppose anything DEI being included in that plan.
I personally think, and this is just me, my shirt kind of says it, but I think we need to stop using DEI. I think we need to transition to talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because a lot of other people will look at DEI and they're like, race, it's all about race, not realizing that it involves inclusion and it involves, all of the things that the whole name means. People are forgetting that all of those things are what it is. So I think that what I'm seeing from our council is DEI may not be verbiage that we're using, but I think that there are ways that we're still going to work all of that. Am I right, Stacy?
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, we're not shying away from it at all. We're just being very deliberate and conscious of our language that we use within what we do. And I think Mayor just unmuted, so.
I have pretty strong feelings about this. Yes, we are not backing down. I mean, it's the values of the city council and the city of Flagstaff. So regardless of what words are or are not in fashion, um, it's a core value that will not be going anywhere.
Awesome to hear.
And this is Russ, Mayor. I thank you for that, Mayor. And Becky and I have talked about this, and Councilmember House too. I won't say where we talked about this. Well, it was on the front lawn of the city hall, actually. But yeah, and Lorena, thank you for bringing that up. It's an uncomfortable thing for some of us to talk about. Um, I'm not sure all city council members want us to even discuss DEI. Quite frankly, I know who I voted for and who I did not. And that's, I know that. But I appreciate that mayor and, and the city council in general is supportive of what we are trying to do. Whether it's, and you know, the fourth letter in DEI is actually A for accessibility. And there's a lot of folks who really, and I think with accessibility, it's money because accessibility costs, it does. And people don't want it. You know, they don't want to expend it. Again, though, and the mayor knows this, the city council represents all of the city of Flagstaff, all 100% of the people who live within the city. And 25% of us have disabilities. So
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think, you know, you're kind of in the county purview, but I don't think it's going anywhere for us.
This is Lorraine, and I was just sharing that as a group overall.
Yeah.
If we had to pick a light item, but it's really great to know in this group and in amongst this circle and anyone I can think of in this city that supports us moving forward with that, of course. But it was just sort of a consideration, you know, for where our energy goes more than anything.
Well, thank you.
and just to kind of, I've also talked with a county supervisor about this issue. And a lot of folks maybe out in the county have a different view of it as well. But he told me that he, as a county supervisor, he's committed to progress.
Who said that?
A
Geronimo?
county supervisor.
Geronimo?
I shouldn't say who, but
I don't think,
Whisper it in my ear after the meeting. Okay. Moving on, let's talk about city staff self-disclosure of disability. I think we've kind of talked about that. And I think we will talk as part of the transition team. We will talk to the new HR person as soon as he has jumped into the gang. Is that good, Stacy? Yeah. Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Next is let's talk about affordable housing for people with disabilities.
yeah, affordable housing is I think the biggest issue for our city in general. I think it is. And looking at the regional plan and working with the planners, affordable housing is kind of the big issue for the city of Flagstaff. Um, and I guess the space for all these people that are going to be moving here. And they understand that we are going to see a lot of people move here. City of Phoenix is getting hotter and hotter every year, and people are not going to be living there.
So I think with this, and this is kind of just outside of the commission purview, I think it's really important for us as private citizens, come to city council, fill out one of those speaker forms, get up and speak about it, speak about ADA and affordability. You know, Timber Sky, I went out and looked at their ADA homes. There's no way I could apply for that. It's not accessible for all disabilities. So I think it's important, but I think this might be one that we might want to consider that we need to take on as private citizens.
I respectfully disagree. There are things that the city can do to influence affordable housing for folks with disabilities. Um, I mean, the city is the Flagstaff Housing Authority who implements, Section 8 and Section 811. I mean, that's the city doing that. And there are things that the city can do to influence more affordable housing being built. Really through zoning, through different business practices. Um, and I have a whole list of them if you want.
So maybe what, and we're gonna have to kind of speed up because we're only at number 6 and we've got 14 to go through and we have a hard stop at 3 o'clock. We're done. But maybe this is one that we write a letter and say on behalf of the people we represent, this is what we would like to see. And maybe that's kind of where we let it go, because I know that it's been a huge issue with this council. And I hear about it all the time. I'm following because I myself am looking for an ADA affordable home. And so it's something that I follow really closely, but I also think that I'm going to do more as a private citizen than, let's just do a letter, I think. Let's do a letter. Let's start there. Let's see if there are changes in how the city operates with this. And then let's move on from there. Keith? No? Anybody else?
I would just kind of maybe defer to the mayor here. Might this also be something that we do meet with Scott Overton about?
I don't think that Scott would be the most appropriate. He's over our public works department, not so much with our housing or code, zoning code.
I mean, code is part of it, right? And engineering standards.
Let's kind of think about that. We'll come back to it during a commission meeting, but we'll put a focus on that. But let's come back to it because we have to get to all 14 of these. Is that okay? Okay. Next is Foots and City projects, and I think we kind of talked about that, but Russ, I know this is kind of a passion of yours. So,
And, this is one of those things, we have an ally in Martin Ince. We absolutely do. And I think we should use him as our ally. And I think Martin is very interested in looking at the foots. In fact, I have my notes here from our last meeting. Uh, at the commission meeting, Martin would like the foots to be evaluated again for accessibility, as Caitlin really did, way back when. He would like to be done again. He reported to us that only about 5% of the foots is ADA accessible. And we can do better than that. And he told us that. He'd like to see an update of the foots information on the city website, including detailed descriptions of individual trails. He'd like to see if the city could do a foots application with a QR code on trailhead signs. I think we can help make that happen with
what do
Martin.
you think about this commission trying to write a grant like you and Caitlin did?
And Martin did.
And
Martin
Martin.
really.
Yes,
But
Martin.
yeah, absolutely.
So maybe this commission can undertake that as a working group item. We can start a working group from that. We can invite Martin, we can invite other people. But I think that let's start a working group for that, for the commission, and then we'll move forward from there.
And yeah, and you say working group, but it's not all work. I mean, honestly, hiking the trails and maybe hiking in the trail with somebody who uses a wheelchair. I mean, that's play. I mean, it is. I love doing it with Caitlin.
Let's also get in
So-
touch with Truman and see if
Absolutely.
he's got somebody.
Mhm.
I know that I'm just fat and lazy and I definitely will not do foots. And so that's just the truth. And so let's see if maybe Truman has somebody that's in a wheelchair or differently abled in some way that's willing to join the working group. But I think maybe the biggest thing should be finding a grant. The city has limited funds and I don't think foots is a priority, to be honest.
But, and finding a grant is great if you can find a grant.
Yeah.
And if you actually get the grant, because many are called and few are chosen with regards to grant work. And I've done a lot of grant work, and I have to tell you, just because you apply doesn't mean you
Yeah.
get it.
Exactly. And it's hard.
Um,
Yeah.
But, and maybe this is part of our discussion too, with regards to therapeutic recreation, because time on the trails is, is
For sure.
leisure and it's recreative and it can be therapeutic. And we want our trails to be ADA compliant so that the people who need the therapeutic recreation can actually receive it.
So let's do this. Let's loop Foots into therapeutic recreation. And then you and Sarah can kind of talk about that. And then present something to the commission when you're ready about it. And let's move forward from there.
Absolutely. And you know, I will be talking with Martin about
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
lot. So,
Of
okay.
course. Okay, let's move on. Number 9, no, number 8, code compliance enforcement. And I'm going to speak to this because I am sidewalk/police liaison. Code compliance does not do enforcement. They're not interested in enforcement. They will never do enforcement. It's kind of a dead issue. If we wanted to talk to Reggie about other things, I think, but you guys all need to understand, code compliance doesn't do enforcement. And that's just kind of the way it is. They're never going to write a ticket. It's a long, complicated process if they have to take somebody to court. And it's just something that I guess the city is not interested in doing. So I think that continuing with Jamie and I, working with them, that I think that that's the best thing that we can do. But I need everybody to understand code compliance is not interested in enforcement. Mayor?
Um, did Reggie tell you this?
Yes.
Okay. Um, let me get back to the group on that.
Okay. I think enough said there.
And-
Anybody
and
else?
Rachel, that's not exactly what Reggie said to us.
I have discussions with him a lot.
And he says different things at different times. Because I got back to Reggie as well as a private citizen. And he said they do enforcement, but not really. Because he says violations that are deemed safety issues, it's very important that we ensure compliance. But he says sidewalk obstruction, including trash cans and bulk trash obstructing sidewalks, are typically removed quickly and therefore have never escalated to the enforcement stage. So, I mean, previously in the email, he says, yes, we do enforcement. And then he says they've never actually done enforcement.
So
Now-
I think that what they mean by enforcement, and I think Kevin talked about this when he came. The whole garbage can thing is every single time somebody puts a trash can out and it blocks a sidewalk, it's a new infraction. So we can make a complaint and say Wednesday, June 25th, there was so-and-so, this address put the garbage can on the sidewalk. If they go out there and the garbage can is gone, they close it. If they go out there and they see that the garbage can is on the sidewalk, they will move it and then they will try and educate the person, whether it be by talking to them or leaving one of their pamphlets, but they're not going to write a ticket. I don't even know that they have that capability, do they, Stacy?
They do not. Robert Solomon reported to us that they do not even have a citation book. So they do not write a ticket.
So I'm curious what you think enforcement looks like.
I think enforcement looks like what former city council member Carthy told us when we actually presented to the city council right here. And he said, this is what should be done. Educate, educate, and then enforce. And he meant write a ticket. That's exactly what he said when he was sitting right here.
So let's let the mayor look into that and then possibly next month she can come back to the commission and tell us what that looks like. But what I'm going to encourage for this commission is let Jamie and I continue working with code compliance and do what we feel has been working. You guys still need to report. We need to encourage differently able citizens to report. But I think that you need to let Jamie and I do the work that we were asked to do and let it go from there and see what happens. And I know you're not happy with that, Russ, because I know that you see a lot of violations. However, and I'm going to be kind of brutal here. You reporting the same thing 20 times Eventually, it's going to be like the boy who cried wolf.
Well, no, it's not, because the boy who cried wolf is telling a lie. I don't tell a lie. When I
It's
see
not the exact same thing, but eventually what's going to happen is they're going to become numb to it.
who,
And the code compliance.
well,
And one of the reasons is because they have to actually see the garbage can on the sidewalk. They have to actually see the violation. And a lot of times by the time they get out there, because I mean, how big is this city, Stacy? Like 500 square miles? It's big. And there's only two officers. And Reggie, who is kind of in the office unless he doesn't need to be, but there's two people that patrol every single area of this city. And so while it's important to us, it's something that they're going to follow up on, but it may not be right when we report it. And
And
I'm
I-
not trying to negate what you're saying and the issues that you're having. I'm just being honest with you and telling you that this is what I've heard from code compliance. And I think that we're continuing to harp on the same things, and I don't know that we're going to see change.
and this is why I think the mayor is here. Because I don't think code compliance gets to decide if they enforce a city ordinance or not. They're employees with a boss who is a city manager, whose boss is the mayor and the city council. So I don't think code compliance gets to decide whether or not city ordinances are enforced.
The
I will
police
tell you,
department does it all the time.
in doing research, the city of Cottonwood does enforce. The city of Cottonwood, when they see an ordinance being violated, they do a citation. They actually have a hearing officer who, if somebody chooses to challenge that citation, they can appear before the hearing officer to challenge it. The city of Prescott does the same thing. The city of Yuma does the same thing.
But you realize those are really small cities.
The city of
They're
Yuma,
way smaller than
the
us.
city of Yuma,
I don't know how big Yuma is, but they're not as big as far as how spread out. They're not as big as we are. And we've got two compliance officers.
well, then maybe what the city needs to do is add to the code compliance staff.
Okay, so I think that we're asking for a lot and
I'm
we're thinking
asking,
about a lot that let's just be realistic about it. City of Flagstaff doesn't have extra money to be adding certain things. And I think that if this is what's working for the city, then we as a commission and we as advocates for differently abled people,
Mhm.
we have to work with what they're doing. We can't just tell them, I want this enforced. They're not choosing what they're enforcing. They go out, Reggie and Kevin both have said to me that they go out on every report that's made. If it's a trash can, the trash can is moved. There's nothing they can do. They have to actually see it. So possibly you taking a picture and sending it in to them with the address, maybe that would help. I don't know, because I don't know their policies. But what I'm saying is, we have these lofty ideas and they're great ideas, but the city of Flagstaff is constrained by the money that they get. You know, we needed an ADA compliance officer. We got it simply because it was rolled into, what other position is he in?
Risk manager.
Risk manager. So, you know, that resolved that issue. But I think that thinking that we're going to ask them to add an employee, I think is a little beyond our reach. And I think quite frankly, it's going to be more about, and this is my own thought, that we're nagging them now and we're not getting anywhere.
Yes, and as we've talked about, sometimes it's a carrot and sometimes it's a stick. And I think that's true in a lot of cases in life. And if talking to code compliance does not increase compliance, actually, and the following of city ordinance, then perhaps more than talking needs to be done.
I think you and I can go back and forth on this all day, and we have. For the whole time that you and I both have been on the commission, we've gone back and forth. And that's the reason that we appointed liaisons. I just, let's do this. For now, let's table the discussion. And let's allow the mayor to do what she needs to do, come back and make her report, and then make a decision about where we go from there. How about that?
And Mayor, you're still with us, right? Oh, that's fine. I assume the mayor will check and will report back to us. She's pretty good at that, actually. Um,
I'll stay in touch with Stacy and Georgiana and see if she's been able to move anything forward. And then next month, someone will have a report, whether it be staff liaison that does a report, whether it be me that does a report as part of my liaison work, we'll have more of a report. How about that?
And you know, there's a second part to this discussion as well, because I see further on the list, snow removal, which is part of this discussion as well.
Are they part of snow removal?
They help with the compliance.
They do compliance. Okay. So let's loop those two things in together, Stacy. Snow removal and code compliance. Let's do those together. And then we will talk more about it when we'll label that as one of let's prioritize everything and then we'll figure out what we're doing.
So we're going to talk about snow removal now?
We only have 45 minutes and we've still got 5 things that we've got to get through.
So this is Elida, and I'd just like to quickly say that in terms of code compliance, snow removal, I think what we're truly asking for is just to have a functioning system that works and keeps our sidewalks and ways of passage barrier free. And there's just been so much confusion. In our April commission meeting, we were told that they do enforcement. They even outlined a whole process. They're telling you they don't do enforcement. They're telling you that they do. There's a lack of clarity in what the current system is. Maybe that's a starting point to get some clarification, maybe not even for us, but internally with the city on who does what. I don't know that we need to ask for another employee, maybe as they look at things and figure out what truly fits within their jobs more. I find that, enforcement belongs with the police department, or I don't know, but I think we're being told a lot of things with certainty from people who don't seem to have information to be certain as to what they're actually responsible for.
So maybe
And
that's something.
this is Keith, and I've got a little bit to say about this one too. I believe that a code is worthless if they don't enforce it. And so we either don't enforce them and then we just get rid of the code. If we keep the code, then we need to enforce it. That's just my opinion on that. And I agree, Reggie and his folks are probably very overwhelmed with this. And I am a stout advocate of giving the city 5 more employees to work on code compliance and code enforcement in our town. Somebody needs, and this goes with snow removal, somebody needs to go around and find the places that they're not shoveling and so on and so forth. We need somebody that's out there looking around. If I just report and report and report and report, okay, and I have reported and nothing ever got done. I don't know if anybody ever went out and looked, but I reported all of Sunnyside and then I reported go and look at the corner crossings for shoveling and none of them got shoveled and they never did. And they stayed that way for weeks after I reported it. So a lot of stuff is not happening that should be happening. So, and I realize if they're short on people, we need to find the money to go
They
and
have the
help.
money. This past year, they tried to hire part-time snow shovelers and full-time. And
Well, I'm talking about enforcing. I'm talking about people going out, looking for the stuff, looking for the problems, and then handing out information to the people that are, breaking the code, handing out information to them, and then going out and enforcing if they don't do anything about it. That's just my opinion.
Stacy, do you have something to add?
I think we can wait for the mayor to follow up. I've made some notes that I'm going to work with our community development director who oversees code compliance and see if we can put something together to really define the process. What is the process? What are the steps? All of those pieces, and then we can try to come back to get some clear clarity. Um, on how it all works together, because I do think that there's been a little bit of just general misunderstanding across the board. And so just to make sure that we have an opportunity to sit down together, understand from the top down what those expectations are. And I think that that will help all of us try to continue this conversation and formulate those recommendations that we can bring forward to the council.
Thank you for that, Stacy. I agree. And code compliance falls under whose supervision?
They're in our community development division, who Michelle McNulty is currently the interim community development director. There are some changes that are going to be happening within that division in the near future, but she is who I will be working with directly to see if we can set something up.
And just one last point. As a commission, I mean, we are appointed to represent the needs of the 25% of the city. As a commission, we are. And as a commission, we decide what issues are important and what issues are not important as we represent the 25%. As an entire commission, we make that decision. And just because this is what code compliance has done in the past does not mean this is what code compliance needs to do in the future. As an advocate for folks with mobility challenges, and as an advocate for unobstructed and accessible sidewalks, I think we need to make changes with regards to what the city will do in the future.
Well, I think we can make recommendations, but what I think is that we have beat this horse to death with Reggie. And I think that we need to get, as Stacy has said, clarity from the mayor and Reggie. We need to get that clarity, and then we need to accept whatever they say. It's okay to send something forward to the commission about what we would like to see changed, but we have been on this for, I've been on this commission for 5 years, 4 years. We're doing the same thing over and over again. Every single year, it's the same thing. So my hope is that we can push this forward without being bullies.
And Rachel, I agree, I don't want to be a bully. I don't think I can be a bully to anyone with the city. But we are not in the same position because due to this commission's discussions and this commission's work, we now have a Snow Heroes program, which we did not have until we encouraged the city to develop a Snow Heroes program. So, I mean, this commission work does bring about changes, even with regards to things like clearing sidewalks. Well, we have.
So what I'm going to ask, Russ, is that we move on from this. We let the mayor come back with what she needs to come back with, and then we put this into a meeting, a formal meeting. We need to get through everything else. And so I understand, I hear what you're saying. I acknowledge what you're saying, and I'm asking if we can table this and move on.
Absolutely. And you're hearing that from not just Russ, you're hearing that from other commissioners and a youth liaison
I
as well.
acknowledge that.
So
I acknowledge. Okay, moving on. City site operating hours. I know, Russ, this has been a big one for you.
and I think a big one for the commission. And like we talked about before, I think our discussions as a commission, I mean, I frankly think that's a big part of why the Aquaplex is now open on Sundays. And that's a big step. I think it's a big part of why, Renew Active, and Stacy will know, man, I must have asked Stacy about Renew Active as city sites 100 times. And now, well, thank you, Stacy, but it's true,
So,
right?
Russ, what do you feel, how do you feel about putting this in with therapeutic recreation? And when we do a letter, we can make that recommendation as part of therapeutic recreation.
I think we could. I also think, in a way, this is a bigger concern and a bigger issue for the community of practice transition team, Elijah and Joseph, because we really are talking about Hal Jensen, and we really are talking about Hal Jensen being open on Saturdays. So, and Sundays if we
So
could, but
I'm going to share
for,
with you.
for the youth.
I think that, I think it was Tyrone. I think that I spoke with Tyrone, and what I heard from him is Hal Jensen does not have enough operating money to be open on the weekends, because during the weekdays, they're offering free food I don't know if they get it from the school district, I don't know where they get it from, but they have lunches. And so they need that Monday through Friday. And the weekends, there's just not enough budget, there's not enough staffing. And so what I heard was that weekends probably are never going to be unless the city has a fund somewhere.
Actually, that's not what I heard from Tyrone, because I reached out to Tyrone as a private citizen as well. And he said, yes, Hal Jensen was open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They had the same budget. In fact, their budget was smaller then than it is now. But that changed during that pandemic because everything closed during that pandemic. But 5 years ago, they did have the budget with a smaller budget to be open on Saturdays. Um, and then he also shared with us the results of the pros survey from 2024. And that was to us as a commission. And he shared with that survey, there were 676 responses, which is a really good return on a survey. But fewer than 5% of those who responded were under the age of 18. So very few of the survey responders were actually the youth who might access Hal Jensen on a Saturday when they're not in school. In his responses, about 15% of the total responses actually use Hal Jensen. About 20% of the responders do not use Hal Jensen because of the operating hours. Now, if we look at that, only 15% of the responders actually use Hal Jensen, but then 20% don't use it because of the operating hours. I would think perhaps we should consider maybe the operating hours are not correct for people to use Hal Jensen. Additionally, 15% will occasionally not use Hal Jensen because of the operating hours. So 35% of all the responders don't regularly use Hal Jensen because of the operating hours.
So maybe another survey needs to be.
I suspect that operating hours they're talking about is the weekends.
If I
So-
may add, this is Lorena. Didn't you say that the body of people were less than 15% youth? So in that case, those saying that the operating hours are not accommodating are not actually youth that are saying that.
That's correct.
And I worked there for 3.5 years, and I will tell you that if there were to be any hours shaved off, it certainly can't be during the weekday because Hal Jensen is a safe house for a lot of those kids whose both parents work well into the evening. And staff and those hours, I think Tyrone did mention that they extended their hours to close at 8 p.m. so that they could be available in the wing on an operational format to just have some oversight for that body of youth. And so I just don't want that to go under recognized with this group. And yes, I do have a little bit of an inside capture of the culture there. And so, yes, it would be great to have those weekends, but we certainly wouldn't want to shave off that later evening time frame regarding the budget.
And I don't know if I would want to do that or not, and I think probably not. I think if there was going to be shaving of operating hours, it'd be in the morning when the youth are in school. But also, Lorena, I taught at Coconut High School for 41 years with those youth who were using Hal Jensen. And those of us who are old enough and have lived there, we used to call that the youth center. And it was the youth center so the youth could use it. But the youth can't use it on Saturdays because it's not open on Saturdays. And they really can't use it from 7:30 to 3 p.m. on weekdays because they're in school.
My understanding is that kids from Coconino walk over to get lunch, some of them.
Yeah, I think that's
That's my
right too. They always have. And sometimes they just, sit at the tennis courts to
That's
eat
what
lunch.
we used to go. My sister and I used to go over there to get lunch.
And and sometimes when youth are at the youth center or at Hal Jensen, bad things happen, right? Because I was in that lockdown on that Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock when a really bad thing happened there. But I hear all the time from youth about there's not enough stuff to do in the city, and there isn't. And hence, sometimes they do bad things because there's not a. I just kind of think, hanging out at Hal Jensen, playing some basketball, shooting some pool in the game room there, that might be something youth would do on a Saturday rather than something else.
If I may interject, maybe this would be an opportunity for a collaborative grant among different agencies outside of the budget from the city in order to have more activity centered there, because I think that it is truly the center of town, more so than downtown is, and I agree that there isn't enough to do for our youth, so just a
Yeah,
note for
I
the
think so
future.
too. I also think, and Stacy can probably correct me, and I don't know, there must be some kind of fiscal arrangement between the city and the county, because I know um, Ponderosa, which is, it's not a school district thing. It's a county operative. They actually use Hal Jensen during the school day. So I assume that's a fiscal thing?
I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak on that. I'd have to get more information from our recreation department.
We could call Cheryl too.
They share a space upstairs and provide education for folks who aren't on the same academic trajectory as high school students receiving a degree or a diploma.
Kids at Ponderosa get a high school diploma.
Right, but I'm saying that the program they have with the county is upstairs, separate from the Hal Jensen Recreation Center. And I know that they have kind of like a hybrid schedule as well, and they work with each student on a nuanced level too. And so those students are often there occupying that space when, like you said, the other students are in high school.
So in this email where Tyrone wrote, we are working with the
Russ, we
county
really do have to move on.
to bring
I'm
the
so sorry.
transitional school into our building. He literally
Stacy.
means just the building, not into the recreational area.
No, it's the schooling itself is upstairs, but they're welcome in all of the space. Yeah.
So I think we can agree that the topic is worth discussing. I think we've got enough information to describe the needs within this particular topic. We know that we're going to try to combine it with therapeutic recreation on some level, but in the interest of time, we've got 30 minutes, and I know we still want to prioritize these in terms of how we want to schedule them out for the year. So if we could move on to the next topic, I think we would be that would be good.
So
So
a super simple thing for accessible websites is Susan is helping somebody.
I'm sorry, I wasn't done discussing the last topic.
Russ, we have to
So,
move on.
But
Whoa,
so
stop. I am
what
the
if we decided,
chairperson.
what if we
Russ,
decided
I
to
am the
do?
chairperson and I'm asking you to stop.
What if we decided to do, Rachel?
We have to, we're gonna, like she said, we're looping it into therapeutic recreation. We will talk about it. We need to prioritize things before we go. And we have to be out of here at 3. So we will loop it into therapeutic recreation and then we will talk about that during a commission meeting. It sounds like that may have to be a whole commission meeting because there's a lot that we're putting under there. But as for today, we are moving on. I'm
It's
sorry.
fine with me.
We're
That's
moving
fine.
on. So the next one is accessible websites. And Susan is or was working with somebody, I don't think officially with the city.
No, and I can add to this. We are working with a company. We've actually hired a company to do an entire audit of our website. We are hoping to have those results probably by the end or middle of July. They will put together a plan for us. We are engaging with all of our divisions to help to make those necessary updates, edits, corrections. Perhaps this is something that once we get a plan in place that we can come back and talk to the commission on what those findings were and what we plan to do. But it will probably be early fall.
Snow removal, we have already talked about that we're looping that
I have
in.
a question with regards to inaccessible websites. So there is a company, what's the name of the company?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I can get back with you on that.
Is it the same company that did the audit like 3 years ago?
I don't believe so. This is a new company out of, give me just a second. I'll see if I can find it.
And I ask because there was an audit done of the city websites a few years ago. And then we also brought in Sean Kugler, who consulted with the commission. Sean is an website accessibility specialist for NAU, and he also audited them and actually came up with some suggestions with regards to improving accessibility with our city websites. which were kind of above and beyond what the company that did the audit suggested. And then sadly, those suggestions were not followed.
If we can get access to what was provided, I'd be happy to share that with our team. The company that we are using is a fixed. They specialize in evaluating websites, again, doing those audits to match them in compliance with the federal guidelines. We have to be in compliance by 2027, I believe, so we're working through this. But again, it's a pretty hefty contract. We're hoping to have outcomes, like I said, probably mid-July. And then our teams internally will work on a plan on how we are going to implement getting those corrected and to standard.
That's really good to hear. The federal law has changed on that very recently, and Keith can kind of talk more to that than I am because he's kind of involved with that at his job. But what was the name of the company again?
Affixed, AFIXT.
Okay, moving on, let's talk about the snow plowing methodology. Scott Overton did come in and talk about that. And I think that if there needs to be further discussion, we will put that in with community development / code compliance. But I kind of feel like this was an issue that Scott Overton dealt with a year ago, I think, when Stephen Thompson and him both came in. So we're going to loop that into code compliance.
And Rachel, this is Lorena. I just wanted to say that was in reference to the Coordinated Mobility Council's request. And
Yes.
so I thought that it was appropriate here, but I think that that group is also working to make some moves and stay acutely aware of those issues.
CMC is invaluable to us, by the way. Okay, any quick discussion about snow removal? Okay. WAVE, Lorena, this is you. WAVE stands for Wheelchair Accessibility Vehicles.
Wheelchair
Wanda.
accessible vehicles,
Sorry.
same thing. No. Yeah, thanks. I think for this topic and for this group, what would be most appropriate going forward would just be to continue a robust campaign of letters of support outside of this group, as well as within this commission. And then we also have flyers that have been freshly printed, and unfortunately, between the CMC and WAVE, I have not had any requests to get those flyers out. And so I'm happy to get them to anyone in this group. I think that getting the word out there is still really important. And I know that there are developments in the near future with improvements with Mountain Line that will hopefully be able to help move this forward more quickly. There's nothing set in stone and there haven't been any formal arrangements, so I can't discuss that at this time. But I don't think that we should drop that movement, and I think that we need to hear from more voices. And so I'm happy to create a template that is a general template that I can pass out in this group in the next meeting, or beforehand I can get it to Rachel. And then I highly encourage everyone here to get that out to the community if possible.
And you start bringing your flyers, and during your liaison time, we will talk about those and possibly get those out.
Yes, and I would have brought them today, but due to the move, they were not accessible. So
Yeah.
thanks for your patience on that.
And I have a few of the old ones that if you can't find your new ones, I have.
Oh, I have a whole thing of new ones
Okay.
that are easily accessible. In fact, you're welcome to drop by Mountain Line or email me, and I can bring them down to you. I can also use our company vehicle to bring them to a direct location. I have complete agency support to do that.
You know I have to have them.
Get with me offline on that.
Okay, so I saw, didn't we have something about transportation already looped in there?
So there was we talked a little bit about transportation, but it was changed to increase mobility awareness due to poor infrastructure.
So what do you think about putting those in together? Okay, let's put those in together.
I think that could go in with the improving snow plowing technology as well,
Okay,
if code compliance is not the right fit.
okay. So that takes care of 13 and 14, I believe. No, 14. That takes care of 13. 14 is working with PD to enlighten officers about ADA interactions. And I will say that that is being worked on with the committee that the chief and I are forming. And so, and I will bring more information about that as the police liaison. I will bring that to every meeting that we do. So, and I think we already have 3 commission members that are going to be on that committee, so we can't take another commission member. But if you are interested, Lorena, Joseph, and Elida, I've got all 3 of my eyeballs on you two, on you 3.
Remember, remember Rachel, you and I talked this morning on the
Yes.
paratransit already,
Yes.
and
Yep,
we had that thought in mind.
we did. And Elida, I know you said you'll get yours in. Okay. And Lorraine, I know you already said you didn't feel like you were a fit, right? About the committee that the police department is doing?
I'm absolutely interested in being a part of it. But I'm not sure formally like where my time can go.
Okay.
I
We meet
am
once
looking at a
quarter.
couple other commissions as well, so I just want to make sure I have like realistic time to do so.
So if I forwarded you the members handbook and the application, do you have a disability coordinator in Mountain Line? Lisa,
Yes,
if I sent it to you, would you forward it to Lisa?
100%.
Okay. Because we're still looking for somebody with mental health guidance center, Southwest or Taros. I've reached out to all 3. I have not heard anything back. If any of you know something, I know that we had talked to Sherry Snodgrass about that during CMC. I've heard nothing back.
Okay.
So we're looking for, we have a few gaps. We have mental health as a gap and we have transportation as a gap right now.
Yeah, definitely resend that so I can take a look at
Okay.
it.
I'll send it when I get home. Okay. So now let's take all 14 of these and I will go around and ask each of you what your top 3 or 5. What your top 5 are.
But we grouped a number of them together,
Right.
so we don't have 14.
Oh, that's right. 9 and 12 are together. 3 and 4 are together.
We could color code them
And
as
then
a suggestion.
13. Oh yeah, color code them. And then 12 and 13 are together. 3 and 4 are together. 9 and 12 are together. They're making demands, Stacy. 3 and 4 were together. 9 and 12. Oh, I'm looking at this differently, sorry. 9, no, 9, 8 and 9. And also 11 altogether.
We had mobility awareness due to poor infrastructure, and we looped those in with code compliance and snow plowing methodology. So there's like 4 combined there. Does that sound right?
Yeah. And then 9 should be looped into 1.
I don't know if Wave should be a part of code compliance personally, but I'll leave it to this group to decide.
Say that again.
I don't think that Wave should be a part of code compliance. I think that's a little bit confusing.
I would agree
Yeah.
that I misspoke. So. Um, Gonna go. Okay. That look,
That does look right.
does that look better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to start with Michelle. Michelle, tell us your top 5 that you think that we need to
Perhaps,
focus on
Rachel, help
primarily
us
this
out
year.
what got looped together.
Say again?
Help us out what got looped together.
Can you see? Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see the screen.
This
So
is
Michelle,
Elida.
give-
If we're grouping together the CD 88 transition plan with the regional plan, those are two pretty big things to put together. But should staff self-disclosure of disability be in that group?
I
I
think
think a
so.
couple of these may have just, I think we got a couple of them off here.
Self-disclosure should definitely be with the ADA transition plan.
Yeah.
I had
and-
too many
and-
things coming at me at one time.
So number 3, and then also add into number 3, Stacy, BFF.
Better.
Better. Okay,
And
Michelle,
then also, would number 6 be a part of number 1?
We did mention that. You're correct. At least the foot's part of it was part of therapeutic recreation.
yeah. City projects can be standalone.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 10.
We can
Well,
put it.
no, because I think that they're already working on it, so I don't think that we need to put it in the transition plan, because we're not gonna need to transition anything.
Yeah, and I think we can loop that together as part of, we can report out on the progress of that as part of these discussions. Because as we're grouping these together, I'm thinking we're going to have single meetings that focus on just one of
Yeah.
these
For sure.
collectively. So
Yeah.
I can make that connection for sure.
Okay, so technically we have 9. So give us your top 4, Michelle.
Okay. So, one would be the WAVE, wheelchair accessible vehicle, code compliance enforcement, the officer enlightenment, and therapeutic recreation.
Okay, let's go to Joseph. What top 4 do you think are important? Do you want me to move on and we'll come back to you? Okay. Regional plan? Job fairs? Job. Working with PD to enlighten officers. Russ? Elida?
This is challenging. All right, my number 1 would be number 3. And number 2 would be number 4. Number 3 is going to be code compliance. And number 4 is therapeutic recreation. And I'll give you different answers later.
Lorena?
Yeah, city transition plan, number 3. Regional plan, number 4. Code compliance, number 3, and therapeutic recreation, number 4.
Seven.
Skip me for a moment. I'm still figuring out which order.
Do you guys have a thing in this too? A voice in this? No?
Nope.
Okay. So number 1 for me is ADA transition. Number 2 is the regional plan. Number 3 is number 7. And then number 4 is therapeutic rec. C, he's C. Because it was Michelle, Joseph, and then Russ. He's C. Oh, that's right.
Oh. Russ, are you comfortable with the ranking you just gave me? Just changing that to? Yeah. Would you like me to highlight? Bet. Joseph, you were C. All right, Rachel, do you mind if I kind of tell you what I see and then see if
Yeah.
this works with the group?
For sure.
So, oh, we are waiting for Keith. Sorry. I won't say anything until Keith's done.
Okay, I think I'm ready. 7, 9, 1, and 8 in that order.
Thank you. All right, what I am seeing here, and I'll let the group discuss and confirm, I think we have a pretty clear number 1, which is the ADA transition plan. Again, consistency with number 2, which is our regional plan. In looking at our 3s, it looks like code compliance is probably the 3, and then therapeutic recreation.
Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes, ma'am.
So if I may, I'll work on putting together a working calendar. Just these other items that are on here, I think are, from my opinion, are worth discussing as this team, but they won't necessarily come as quickly as the other ones. So I will also build them into our working calendar for the year, kind of based on the other rankings here that I see. Of course, that always remains open to adjustment if we need to, but
And I think a lot of the ones that we didn't choose are going to resolve themselves as we move forward.
it's quite possible.
And Stacy, thank you for that. Stacy, I'm not going to remember which ones got looped together. Which is not. And I don't think I'm going to write it down fast enough for you. But can we get it like where therapeutic recreation, city site operating, FUTs is all together? It's an item, because that's what it is, right?
Correct. Line number 1 will have an entire meeting that talks about, and this likely will span multiple meetings, but therapeutic recreation, including city site operating hours, foots improvements. So that will all be one topic that is discussed. It may again span over a couple of meetings, but that's the intent. Is that what you were looking for? Of course. You got it.
So each of these top 4 will have their own meeting is essentially what we're doing. And more than, for sure, more than one for at least number 1
Yes.
and probably 2. All right, anything else? We have to be out of here in 9 minutes, so.
I have a lot more else. You cut me off and now we have 9 minutes left.
Keep it for the meetings. Anything else? All right, then let's adjourn the meeting at 2:54.
Thank you all.